Once upon a time, in the beautiful city of U, stood a prestigious boarding school named Gratis College. It was a mixed boarding school, and every parent wanted their children to attend the school. The entrance examination was not so easy at all. Only a handful of students scaled through the examination and were given admission into the school. A girl named M was part of the people who got admission into the school. At first try, she was an extremely brilliant girl who came out top in the examination. Her mother was a poor trader who had no idea that her daughter had taken the entrance examination. Gratis College had always been out of her reach, but M had a dream that was way bigger than poverty. She secretly studied every night, using borrowed textbooks from her neighbor and past questions she found at the local library. When she saw the entrance examination notice pasted on the wall of the school, she realized that it was free. Her mom was so excited to take the examination, despite knowing that she could not afford the fees. She applied in secret, walked to the exam venue alone, and sat confidently among daughters of lawyers, bankers, and even politicians. Mom worked so hard in the examination, as if her life depended on it. When the results were finally released, her name topped the list. The owner of Gratis College, Mr. Felix Udia, a stand but fair man with a passion for academic excellence, was completely stunned when he saw her score, which was way higher than any child that ever took the entrance examination. Registration began, and MM could not afford the registration fee. Talk more of the exorbitant fees. She sat in her mother's market store, sad as the thought of losing the admission broke her spirit. Her mother could not help but notice how sad she looked. She asked to know what the problem was, but MM could not bring herself to tell her. She knew how sad this will make her mother, knowing that her mother could not afford to pay the fees, so she kept it to herself. As the date of the registration drew to an end, M received the shocker of her life. Her mother returned from the market with the shocking news. Representatives of the school approached her market to inform her that her daughter had been given full scholarship to study at Gratis College. She stood there stunned as the people informed her that her daughter's tuition, uniform, books, and feeding will be taken care of by the school. Mom was the first scholarship student at Gratis College. She could not believe her ears. She jumped up in excitement, anticipating the day that she would finally resume in her dream school. Her mother sat her down one night to tell her how proud she was of her. She advised Mim to focus on her studies and be prayerful while she navigates this new chapter of her life. Broke down in tears at the thought of leaving her poor mother alone on the day of Assumption. She packed up her belongings into an old metal trunk that her uncle had patched together for her. Inside were her old textbooks, neatly folded uniforms, and a bucket containing her only provisions, which were Gary sugar and some dry granules. She arrived the gates of the college with her mother by her side, her eyes wide open in excitement as she took in the beautiful view. Mom could not contain her joy. She approached the receptionist and was directed to her dorm room, where she met some girls who turned out to be her roommates. Bid a mother farewell, and she began to settle in a new school. Her roommate kept away from her, believing that she was a charity case. After all, she was on scholarship, the first scholarship that the school had ever given. Mom was focused, always at B. She read while others gossiped. She prayed when others parted in the corners of the dormitory. Her mother's words echoed in her heart every day. Let your silence speak through your success. But in a place like Gratis College, silence could be so dangerous too. Status was everything at the college, and was the charity case of the entire school. Her roommates ignored her whispering whenever she walked by her. Gary and granite meals were laughed at as others had their expensive provisions and snacks. Was so desperate to belong, she decided to make friends, not just with anyone, but with the most popular girl in the school. Her name was Eva, and she was the daughter of a top politician. Her best friend Dudori was so protective of her and didn't want anyone to be close to them. But Mim did not care. She wanted to be popular and knew that Ava was her best bet one day. Em approached Ava to try her luck. "I want to be your friend," she said to her, her voice shaking as Ava laughed out in disbelief. "What makes you think that we ever want to be friends with a charity case?" "Like you, Eve's friend," asked him, who stood there, humiliated. Eva, seeing how desperate was to be friends with them, agreed on only one condition. "You'd have to prove yourself to us that you're ready to roll with the big girls," she said to who promised to do anything to prove that she was ready. That was when everything changed, and MM's life changed for the worse. The task seemed simple on the surface, but what did not know was that her life would never remain the same. After it ever handed her a substance to drink, and though hesitant, drank it without any questions. The events of the next few hours were a blur as found herself lying in the middle of the school field. Alone, it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and had no idea how she got there. She quickly dragged herself up and rushed back to the dome try, where everyone seemed to be asleep, confused and shaking. She climbed into her bed, wondering what could have happened the next morning. Woke up feeling so strange. She got to class and met AVA, who did not even spare her a glance. Could not take her mind off what could have happened. Her head was so foggy, and she still felt unusually weak. What did EVA give to her that evening, and what did they make her do? Decided to confront AVA, but AVA pretended not to know what she was talking about. The more asked, the more EVA made her feel like she had lost it weeks past, and the me still had no answers to her questions. She struggled through her classes, unable to concentrate, her hands trembling as she tried to write. Her classmates noticed how pale she looked, but no one said a word. After all, she was just a poor girl, lucky enough to be schooling among the children of the elite. To them, her struggles were not their concern. One evening, as the students stripped out of the cafeteria, 2002 fell to the ground, unconscious. The students rushed her to the school clinic, where it was discovered that had ingested a harmful substance that had severely damaged her kidney. The school nurse looked at the lab result with horror, referring her to a specialist hospital where they believed her case could be handled. By the time Emma was rushed to the hospital in Uo, her condition had worsened. The doctors revealed that she had to undergo a kidney transplant. Without the transplant, they revealed that only had a few weeks to live. It's EVA. She gave me a substance to drink, Emily said to her mother, who approached the school principal to lay a complaint. She narrated all that her daughter had said to her, and the principal informed her that her daughter was a troubled child. Was a very troubled child, and we did our best to guide her. But unfortunately, the environment she came from had already shaped her decisions. Mr. Felix Udovia said coldly to her mother, revealing that the school had zero tolerance for indiscipline. Her mother sat there stunned. knowing that her daughter was not anything like what he had described. Are you saying that my daughter is at fault? She was poisoned, and the doctors are saying that she needs a kidney transplant. She said to Mr. Phillips, who informed her that she would hear back from the school in less than 24 hours. MM and her mother received a letter from the school stating that she had been expelled from Gratis College. The letter cited misconduct, dangerous behavior, and violation of school ethics as its reason. It made no mention of EVA or any other student, pushing all the blame to who they stated was from a disadvantaged background. The letter simply stated that the school had gone out of its way to support a child from a disadvantaged background. But children of this sort always have a way of bringing disrepute to the very hands that try to help them. Mom's mother clutched the letter, her hands trembling, her eyes brimming with tears inside her. Daughter lay unconscious, struggling for her dear life. She had no money and no one who could fight the injustice that she was currently facing. Gratis College, which was once a dream come true for her daughter, had now turned to a terrible nightmare. It wasn't long before articles began to flood the tabloids calling MM the product of a rotten society. Her pictures and that of her mother was plastered all around the tabloids, with articles detailing how Gratis College's first scholarship student turned out to be a substance abuser who tried to introduce other students to substance abuse. The school publicly scrapped the scholarship program, indefinitely citing MM's incident as the major reason the news spread like wildfire. And every media outlet carried a version of the story that was twisted, manipulated, and carefully edited to protect the image of the school. Emma's face was plastered everywhere, shaming her mother for neglecting her daughter's upbringing. They turned her into a national disgrace, making her daughter a sore example of when the society decides to give the wrong people opportunities that they do not deserve. Her dreams were buried under headlines, and her truth was silenced beneath carefully written lies. No one talked about the fact that MM had topped the entrance exam. No one remembered how the school once celebrated her brilliance and excellence. Now she was a scholarship girl who turned out to be a drug abuser. Her mother, devastated and heartbroken, refused to give up. She stood at the gates of the hospital, pleading with anyone that cared to listen to help save her child. Most people she approached walked away, whilst others who recognized her judged her for her daughter's predicament. Then she met Ubong, a young journalist who had been following her story with keen interest. Ubong was not just any journalist. He was once a student of Gratis College who had a similar encounter. So many years ago, he witnessed a huge cover-up in the school that was never spoken of again. A classmate of his died in an unusual circumstance, and the school covered it up as an accident, blaming the dead student for being careless. What had actually happened was that a group of bullies threatened a student to expose his secret if he failed to jump into the overhead tank in the school. The boy, whose name was Ku, jumped into the tank and never came out alive. The students all dispersed, pretending not to know what had happened. Days passed, and Ku remained in the school's tank until an anonymous report reached the owner of the school, who silently initiated a cleanup without alerting the authorities. When Ku's parents were finally alerted, the school informed them of how rebellious their son was, stating that Ku was such an impossible child. We tried to bring him under control, but all he does is go against the rules of the school. They said to his parents, who had no other option but to bury their son no one ever spoke of the incident again, and the news didn't even make it to the media. So when Ubong heard of all that happened to M, he knew that history was repeating itself again, seeing how the media manipulated the story to paint as a villain, just like the school had once done to Ku. This time, Ubong refused to be silent. He began a secret investigation and realized that the school was in search of a literature teacher. Ubong decided to apply for the role, and Mr. Felix was so happy to have a former student working in the school. Ubong began to work in the school. He was so handsome, and the girls in the school could not keep their eyes off him. They all had a crush on him and giggled whenever he walked past them. One day, Eva approached Ubong to ask for help. She narrated how she was struggling with literature and asked if he could give her extra lessons after prep. Ubong, keeping his school, agreed. He saw this as an opportunity, an opening into the truth of what happened to M. But what Ubong did not know was that Eva's friend Udori was watching. She had always admired Ubong from afar ever since he joined the school. There was something different about him, the way he taught, the quiet fire in his eyes, and the way he treated each student with importance. He wasn't just another teacher, he was real, and Udori wanted to be seen by him. So when she saw Evie hovering around Ubong after prep, pretending to be struggling with literature, a subject that she had always excelled in, jealousy stirred inside her like poison. That night, Udori could not sleep. She tossed and turned in her bed, worried that Ubong would fall for her friend Eve. So the next evening, she slipped a handwritten note into Ubong's drawer in the staff room, stating that if he was not who he thought she was, meet me behind the old laboratory after prep, and I'll tell you all about it. The notes read, and Ubong could not hold back, curious but filled with caution. Ubong showed up at the meeting point and met Udori, who stood in her school uniform, her arms folded as she looked both nervous and relieved. "I want to talk," she said quickly before she could change her mind. "I don't know why I'm doing this. Maybe because I want you to know the truth, or maybe because I'm tired of living with the guilt, or maybe it's because I like you and I want you to see that I'm not like you." Her Bong did not speak. He just listened as Udori spilled everything she confessed, how Evie gave MMD the drink that evening, and how they all watched her from a distance, giggling as she staggered across the field, thinking it was just a silly prank, but it wasn't. Doris said, her voice shaking. "It wasn't just a joke. We didn't know it would get that bad. If you said it was a detox, something her cousin used to lose weight, I didn't question it. None of us did. But when M collapsed and we saw her in the clinic, I knew something had gone terribly wrong. I wanted to speak up, but Ava threatened me. She said if I ever opened my mouth, she ruined me." Ubong stood in silence, his jaw tight. He could feel the weight of years of injustice rising in his chest like fire. "Will you help her?" Udori asked in a whisper. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but she didn't deserve what happened to her?" Ubong nodded slowly. "Yes," he said, "but we are going to need more than just words." Udori gave him a flash drive. "There's a video I was recording the prank that night, just for fun, but he caught everything. Mom, drinking, laughing, even when we all ran away after she passed out. That was all Ubong needed." By the next morning, the truth had a voice. Ubong sent the footage and Udori's confession to national news outlets, independent bloggers, human rights groups, and legal activists. This time, the story could not be buried. The video went viral. Public outrage erupted across social media hashtags like "Justice for M" trended worldwide. Gratis College found itself under intense fire, the Ministry of Education shut the school down for investigation. Evie and her parents were summoned, and within days she was arrested. Mr. Felix Udofia, the once respected school owner, was interrogated for his negligence cover-up and defamation of a minor. The school's board was dissolved. The school's reputation, carefully crafted over decades, collapsed overnight. As for Amy, she finally received the help that she needed. Donations poured in from people across the country, strangers who read her story and saw her for what she truly was, a brilliant child fueled by a broken system. She underwent the transplant and slowly began to recover. Her mother remained by her side the entire time, praying, holding her hand, whispering, and assuring her that she would be fine. Months later, when could walk again, she gave a televised interview. Her voice was soft, but every word was clear. I wanted to belong, but now I know that I was never the problem. The system that made me feel like I wasn't enough. That was the problem. She turned to the camera and smiled to every girl out there who feels invisible. You are not your truth matters. Udori, meanwhile, was expelled from Gratis College along with Evie, but she walked out with something her friend never had: a clear conscience. She later wrote an open letter apologizing to publicly. And Ubong, he won the Human Rights Journalism Award that year for his groundbreaking expose on elitism and institutional injustice. His story helped reform scholarship policies and spark conversations around bullying and discrimination in elite schools across the country. Later returned to school, a different school, and graduated with honors. She went on to study law and dedicated her life to protecting the rights of children like herself. In the end, her story didn't just shake a school, it shook a nation. And she became more than the girl who topped an entrance exam. She became a voice, a survivor, and eventually a symbol of justice. The lesson to be learned from this story is that justice may be delayed for a while, but it will never be denied. Boarding schools do not just educate, they shape children into the adults that they should become. Children can be influenced, broken, or built behind closed doors. So as parents, learn to be present, stay involved, ask questions, show up unannounced, because silence, while powerful, can sometimes hide things that need to be seen. I hope you enjoyed the story.